What's up, everybody? My name is Parasite. Welcome back to Rebuilding Nebraska. We have finished year 2 here at the Cornhuskers. And in this episode, we'll take a look back at the season. We'll look at the schedule, we'll look at the stats, we'll look at the award winners, and everything in between. If I remember, the plan is to put timestamps in the description for every little bit I go over. But first, we're going to start with the schedule. We ended the season with an 8-5 record, and we were 3-1 in non-Big Ten play. We started the season against FCS Northwest. We had a lot, and I mean a lot, of true freshman starters. So I wanted kind of an easy start, and we got a 38-3 win. We might not see another FCS team for the rest of this save, but this time I felt like it made a lot of sense. After that, we took on Fresno State. We smashed them as well, 35-6. And obviously, Fresno State are a lot better than FCS Northwest. They're an actual D1 team, but they are one of the weaker D1 teams. But it was still pretty encouraging. Then we took on a rival. I want to take on a non-conference rival every single season. This year, we played against Missouri, former both Big 12 teams, and another really good win. Missouri are not a bad team. They're obviously not one of the better teams in the SEC, but they're not bad. And we smashed them 31-10. So we got a 3-0 start, and we looked really good. And then we started Big Ten play, and we lost. We were awful in the Big Ten last year, and I was really worried it's going to be the same thing, and it almost was. We lost by 7 to Northwestern, a team that we shouldn't be losing to. Then we did get our first win in the Big Ten, beating Illinois 31-13. Pretty comfortable win as well. Happy with that one. And then, yeah, we played a rematch of the previous season's bowl game against Kentucky, and they put up 50. We got absolutely humiliated. This is the worst game of the season, bar none. The other losses, most of them are against ranked teams. This one is just unexplainable. We were just awful. And then we had to take on number 15 Michigan after that, which is not encouraging. And I mean, for the most part, we held our own. They only scored 17 compared to 50 for Kentucky, and they are a better offense than Kentucky. So we played decently well, but this is where the offense started to struggle a bit. They had a pretty good start to the season, but only 6 points, and that was from the first 2 drives. But then they got back on track against a very bad Minnesota team with a 37-18 victory. Then Penn State, one of the wildest games of the season, went to overtime. We win 33-30. They do only finish 3-9, but I do think they're a lot better than that record. So that's still a good win. And then 3 in a row in the Big Ten, something we hadn't done before. Indiana 40-35. I mean, Indiana aren't good enough that this should be that close, and they should be putting up 35 on our defense. But they did. Our defense really started to struggle, starting with this Penn State game. Then Michigan State, where we got absolutely whooped again. 45-20. I mean, it wasn't even that close, and it doesn't even look that close, but it wasn't even as close as it looked. They absolutely demolished us. And then we ended the regular season against Iowa, another frustrating loss, 17-24. Again, the offense wasn't very good. The defense didn't really do much the entire game, which made the bowl game a big surprise because, you know, if you haven't watched it yet, go back and watch it. I'm getting ready to show the results. We beat LSU somehow. 17-7. They only scored 7 points. The only other team to get under, I think, was 17, the lowest any other team scored against us. It was, or I guess 6 against Fresno State, and then 3 against FCS Northwest. But outside of that, Missouri scored 10, and that was the least other than that 17 against Michigan and 13 against Illinois. I don't know how we only allowed 7 points, because that LSU offense is extremely good. They were ranked number 20, and the defense just had the best game of their lives. The offense still struggled. First couple of drives, they got the majority of their points. I think all of their points came on our first 3 drives of the game. Then after that, we did absolutely nothing. But fortunately, the defense was absolutely fantastic, and they made that 17 points all we needed. Next, we're going to take a look through some of the bowl games from across the nation, starting with the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, which was won by Texas Tech over NC State. This is the one we were in last year. The Peach Bowl was won by Georgia in dominant fashion over Florida State, 42-7. And that was a good Florida State team. They only had 3 losses on the season, and Georgia absolutely embarrassed them. The Outback Bowl, we got a win for a Big Ten team, and it's Ohio State. They beat Arkansas 48-33, finished 12th in the nation. The Rose Bowl was won by Washington over a team that demolished us, Michigan State. And they finished number 4 in the nation with a 34-21 win over Michigan State. In the Fiesta Bowl, another division opponent that beat us, Michigan, actually loses to UCF 49-31. Not a great game from them. They had a pretty good season, but didn't end well for them. Then in the Sugar Bowl, probably one of the better bowl games of the day, Texas beats Oregon 24-21. And that had to be a great game. very close, and Oregon were the higher seed, but Texas pull out the win. In the Cotton Bowl, Oklahoma puts up 57 on Wisconsin and absolutely blow them out. And that was without overtime. That is 57 points from 4 quarters. That is impressive. Next up, the Orange Bowl was won by Florida over North Carolina, 42-35. Florida ended up number 2 in the nation with only 1 loss on the season. And then finally, the national championship was one we've seen before. Clemson took on Alabama, and Clemson once again get the win as they end Alabama's bid for an unbeaten season and win 35-23 to lift the national championship. Next up, we're going to take a look through some of the award winners, the All-Americans, and the Heisman winner, which is a player that kind of dominated us, and that is Peyton Thorne for Michigan State. They lose their bowl game, but he gets the consolation of winning the Heisman. Second was another Michigan player. This one, not Michigan State, but it was Hassan Haskins for the Wolverines. And third was Sam Howell, the quarterback for North Carolina. Then Naquan Wright, running back for Florida. And fifth place was Devin O'Kane, running back for Texas A&M. Next up, we'll take a look through some of the All-Americans. Unfortunately, we didn't get any All-NCAA first or second team. We did get some All-Freshman team players in there. But I will take a quick scroll through the first and second team so you can see some of the names. No big surprises. A player from Houston, Nathaniel Dell at wide receiver. A couple other smaller state guys like Ezadore from Texas State. But mostly some of the bigger schools. Eastern Carolina also gets a linebacker in there. The kicker was Cade York from LSU. The second team, Bryce Young headlines this at quarterback. And again, a lot of big schools in here. Nevada has a wide receiver, Elijah Cooks. Outside of that, Alabama's, Clemson's, Oregon's. South Alabama player gets in there, AJ DeShazer, the linebacker. And Memphis player in there. And yeah, that's about it. Reichard, the kicker from Alabama, also is a second team All-American. I think the only one we really stood a chance of getting is our freshman kicker, and he did get the freshman team. As did Brian Donaldson at wide receiver. Had a really fast start to the season, then kind of trailed off, but he still gets freshman All-American. That's the only offensive player, though. Right in, Antonio Gilmore also is a freshman All-American. I mean, I don't know how our tight end didn't get it. Like, how many yards does this guy have? 517, not bad, but I think ours was better. Antonio Gilmore at defensive end gets freshman All-American. Tim Hart, also freshman All-American. As is Gary Thompson, the cornerback. And then Leon Young is the All-American at kicker. Now, if we move over to All Big Ten, we do have a couple first and second team players in the All Big Ten team. No one on offense, which is unfortunate. We do get Ty Robinson, the defensive end. Had a pretty solid season, both rushing the passer and in run support. Linebacker Will Honas, our middle linebacker, gets in there. And I think we have one more player, and it's the kicker, Leon Young. In the second team, again, no offensive players. A little disappointing. Defensively, we had Gary Thompson, the true freshman, and Miles Farmer, the first-time starter at free safety. That was all of our Big Ten All-Americans. Now I'll move on to some award winners. Unfortunately, we didn't win any awards this season, and we only had one player make a short list. But I'll still scroll through them so you can see who won the awards. The Maxwell, unsurprisingly, was won by Peyton Thorne. The Walter Camp by Central Michigan running back Kobe Lewis. That's a surprise. The Bednarik, Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M. The Nagurski, Anthony Cooper from Arizona State. The O'Brien, Peyton Thorne. The Walker, Hassan Haskins for the Wolverines. The Blitnikoff, a Michigan State receiver. Obviously, their quarterback won the Heisman. And Jaden Reed wins the Blitnikoff. The Mackey goes to Jack Eschenbach, tight end for Wisconsin. Not a big surprise to see a Wisconsin tight end win the Mackey. The Outland won by Evan Neal. And the Remington by Donovan West of Arizona State. The Lombardi was also won by Anthony Cooper. The Butkus also won by Edgerrin Cooper. The Thorpe was won by Jermaine Waller from Virginia Tech. The Groza is the only one that we appeared on, is won by Cade York from LSU. And Leon Young finished fourth, even though he was perfect, 17 of 17, and hit all of his extra points. The Guy was won by James Burnip from Alabama. And then the Jet was won by Abdurrahman Yassin from Purdue. Now I'll take a look at the top 25 to end the season. Starting off, unsurprisingly, the winner of the national championship, Clemson, finishes number 1. Florida number 2. Alabama, with that loss, dropped down to number 3. Then you got Washington, Georgia, Oregon, Stanford, Michigan State, Oklahoma, and Texas. No big surprises in the top 10. Then you've got North Carolina and Ohio State 11 and 12th. Then UCF in 13th. Texas A&M, Michigan, South Alabama. This is the weirdest one. South Alabama are 16th. They're in the Sun Belt. They were 10 and 3, but they're in the Sun Belt. Surprising. Then Florida State, Memphis, Miami, Wisconsin, UAB, another kind of a surprising one. 22 is Pittsburgh, Air Force. Again, pretty surprising. How are Air Force in there? Arizona State, Arkansas State, another kind of crazy one. And that's the top 25. We didn't, unfortunately, even receive any votes. Purdue, Coastal Carolina, Auburn, Nevada, Kansas somehow, Wake Forest, Toledo, Arkansas, and Georgia Tech all getting votes, with Arkansas, Purdue, and LSU all dropping out. Now we're going to take a quick look through all the stats. Jeff Holland was our starting quarterback for basically the entire season. No one else started a game, but Harburg did come in when we got benched. But he ends the season with 375 attempts, 266 completions, almost 2,700 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, which is a pretty good ratio, especially for a freshman. But unfortunately, like at least 7 of those, it feels like, were turned for touchdowns. 206 yards per game, which is not that great. 70% completion percentage, though, which is tied for best in the nation. But the worst in the nation is his average yards per completion. Only 10. He just did not test down the field almost at all this season. He needs to do that some next season. But the biggest problem with Jeff Holland is 67 sacks. He was sacked 67 times, which is 22 more than any other quarterback in the nation. Now to rushing, we had 3 players that had a significant role on the ground. Starting with Ramir Johnson, who, I mean, he wouldn't have had as many carries if Jake Pierce hadn't gotten injured, but he ends up with 572 yards, a 5.1 average, which is average, 4 touchdowns. He had 187 yards after contact, which is actually pretty good. 2 runs of 20-plus yards and 11 broken tackles, which is okay. Jake Pierce ends his freshman season with 507 yards. I think if he would have not gotten injured, he would have been 800 to 900 probably. I don't think he would have gotten to 1,000, but 5.5 average, better than Ramir Johnson. 4 touchdowns as well. 163 yards after contact, 3 rushes of 20-plus or more. And that's one of the better in the nation, but only 8 broken tackles is a little low. Jeff Holland, though, I mean, if he didn't have that many sacks, he probably would have 1,000 yards. But, I mean, he had to have like 500 yards at least taken away on sacks. Something ridiculous. So, only 2 touchdowns on the season, 484 yards, 250 yards after contact, which is absurd, and 6 runs of 20-plus yards, which is the most in the nation, and 22 broken tackles, which is quite a bit as well. Brian Donaldson and Yaka Zant were used a little bit on the ground as well. Donaldson with some triple option plays, some end rounds, ends with 75 yards, didn't have a lot of contribution on the ground. And Yaka Zant, only 57 yards from 24 attempts is bad, but he was mostly used in short yardage in the goal line. He ends up with the most touchdowns at 7. Receiving, it looked like Brian Donaldson was going to be our leading receiver when we started the season, but after about the midway point, he really fell off and didn't really have much of an impact for the second half of the season, which is disappointing. I thought he could have gotten to 1,000 yards as a true freshman, but he only ends up with 614. Most of that because of drops. He had the most drops in the nation. Rodney Jennings actually leads our team with 670 yards, 5 touchdowns, only 1 drop. He had a very good season for a freshman tight end. Will Nixon was our 3rd leading receiver, nearly 500 yards and 5 touchdowns from the slot, only 1 drop as well. Very good hands. Wyatt Luer, senior outside wide receiver, a little disappointing. 485 yards, 4 touchdowns. He had like 8 drops, and he's very slow. All he can really do is catch the ball, and he didn't even do that good enough. Had the highest yards per reception, but I still feel like he didn't really make that much of an impact. Then we've got a couple more players over 100. A couple running backs in here. Amir Johnson, only 3.9 average is very low. Jake Pierce, 7.6 average, which is okay. He actually had more yards on 12 less receptions. And then Xavier Betts had a little bit of involvement this year, ends with 123 yards and 4 touchdowns. For the offensive line, our right tackle, Turner Corcoran, finished the season with 24 sacks given up. Obviously, Jeff Holland was sacked a lot, most of them from the left defensive end. Not all of it was Corcoran's fault, though. I mean, Jeff Holland a lot of times ran into that pressure, but Corcoran wasn't good either. Newly, the right guard, also gives up 12 sacks, which might be the most of any guard in the nation as well. You can't be giving up 12 sacks as a guard. And Cam Jurgens, who I thought was going to be our best offensive lineman, also not that great. He gave up 7 sacks. Prochaska, our left tackle, only 6, which is not bad. And then Ethan Piper, who started at left guard, is probably our best offensive lineman. 6 pancakes, only gave up 2 sacks. Defensively, our tackle numbers end up a little low, but that's because for some reason the game doesn't really count assisted tackles for the user like it does for the CPU. Our leading had 4, but if we go to Air Force, theirs had 48. Yeah, there's some sort of issue there. I wish it would count assisted tackles, because Will Honas definitely, I think, had more than 64 tackles, but he does lead the team. Blake Harper with 56, Miles Farmer with 52, Garrett Nelson with 50. In terms of tackles for loss, Ty Robinson had a pretty decent season, stopping the run, 19 tackles for loss. 15 for Antonio Gilmore, the freshman right in, which is a little bit of a surprise. Garrett Nelson with 13 from linebacker, which is pretty decent for a linebacker, definitely the most of any linebacker in the team. Honas had 7. Buckley also from defensive tackle had 10. Hart also had 7. Reimer only 5, which is a little disappointing. He still played quite a bit. In terms of sacks, Ty Robinson once again led us in sacks. Once again, he goes into the double digits. Not as many as he had last year, but he does get 11 sacks, which I think is like the third or fourth most in the nation. For us, though, Tim Hart and Antonio Gilmore both get 6, the true freshman starters. Garrett Nelson with 4, Roquan Buckley with 3, and Luke Reimer, the only one else to get a sack, 1 for him. We definitely need some more sacks next year. In terms of interceptions, Gary Thompson, the freshman starter, led us with 3. Quentin Newsom, the senior, gets 2, as does Buford and Farmer. In the kicking game, I said it earlier, and Leon Young was perfect, 17 of 17 from the field, but the longest one he attempted was 44 yards. Doesn't have the strongest leg, so I didn't really want to attempt too many long ones, and usually we needed touchdowns, so I was going for it in a lot of situations, but he was very good. Obviously, he hit every single kick he made from the field or from extra points, 38 of 38 there. You can't really ask for much more. Finally, looking at the kick returners, Jaquez Yant was our main kick returner the first 2 seasons. This year, he has 34 returns for 788 yards. An average yards per return of 23.1, which is about average. And then punt return, Brody Belt was our punt returner. He is a senior. He didn't really play much at wide receiver, mostly a special teams guy. He had 262 yards in terms of punt return yards. Only 24 is pretty low, but the 10.9 average is one of the best in the nation, but longest of only 18 and no touchdowns. To finish up, we're going to take a look at the roster, but to start, we're going to look at some of the players that are committed to the team for next season. Most of them you already know, but we had a couple new commits. Matt Lamb has committed. He's probably going to be a middle linebacker for us. Jack Haley, probably going to be a right tackle. Joseph Monroe is probably going to be our starting left outside linebacker next year. John Robinson going to be our starting punter. BJ Cook, a cornerback. Adam Taylor, another linebacker. Quentin Edwards, a pass rusher. Clarence Little has committed as a running back. Tim Hawley eventually committed as a safety. We did get Sean Washington as well, the pocket passing quarterback. And then Marvin White, another linebacker, and he's a pretty versatile one, so I'm really happy to have him. He can play anywhere from left to right to middle. Now looking at the roster, starting with quarterback, I think we're pretty set here. Jeff Holland's still going to be our starter next year. He struggled at times this year. I'm hoping to be a little bit more consistent throwing the ball with the full year of development. Behind him is going to be Sam Green. He was redshirted this year. He transferred here. Very solid overall attributes. We've also got Sean Washington coming in, the pocket passer, who's going to be redshirted. At running back, we're pretty well set here too. Jake Pierce is going to stay as a starter. Hopefully he can have a full season. I think he could be a 1,000-yard running back. Ramir Johnson's going to return for his senior season as a backup. Then we got Jaquez Yant returning as the short yardage back. And we got Clarence Little coming in as well, who's going to be redshirted. Probably going to be the backup after Ramir Johnson graduates. At wide receiver, I think we could use a little bit more depth here, but just not many great options in the recruiting pool. I don't think we're going to be able to add anyone. Will Nixon is going to be returning as a junior. Probably going to stay as our main slot guy. Lure obviously is graduating. Brian Donaldson obviously coming back. Hopefully his hands can be a little bit better. Hopefully that's where he improves in the offseason because he definitely needs it. Our number 2 probably isn't going to be Xavier Betts, even though he's the highest rated. His receiving attributes just aren't very good. He only has 70 catching, 70 catching traffic, 73 route running. I think James Hill, who was redshirted this year, is going to be the number 2 guy. Catching's not much better, but it's going to improve a little bit. And he's got 80 route running and some good size and speed with that 6'4", 87 speed, 94 acceleration. So I think it's going to be Donaldson and Hill on the outsides with Will Nixon in the slot. Betts being the 4th guy. At tight end, I think we're really set here as well. Rodney Jennings is definitely going to be the starter. He's one of the best freshmen, if not the best freshman in the team this year. He's got very reliable hands, and he's good at getting open. He's going to be the number 1. Hickman for his senior season is going to be the backup, and then Carney is going to be a sophomore. He's going to be the number 3 guy. Offensive line is mostly going to look the same. Only one senior starter is going to be graduating. Left tackle, Brajotska is going to stay there. I thought he was really solid this year. Left guard, Piper, the same thing. I thought he was really good. He's going to be a senior. We've got Michael Newsom as well, who's redshirted this season. He's probably going to get a chance to start at right guard because Newley wasn't any good. Center is where we have the senior. That's Cam Jurgens, the highest rated offensive lineman, even though I don't know if he was the best one. Tony Roberts, who was redshirted this year, is going to be his replacement. Right guard, I already said, yeah, we might move on from Newley. Wasn't very good. I'm going to give Newsom an equal opportunity to try to win that job. At right tackle, I mean, Turner Corcoran led the nation in sacks allowed, so I think I have to kind of provide some competition there. It can't just be his job. We do have Jack Haley coming in. He might be that competition because Ben Hart, I mean, he's okay. I don't know if he's better. He might still get the chance, though. Our defensive line is going to be staying exactly the same as long as Ty Robinson doesn't declare, which he could. 11 sacks this season. He's going to be our starting left end. Right end, still going to stay with Antonio Gilmore, the freshman defensive end. I thought he had a solid season. Defensive tackle, we're going to stay with Tim Hart. It's going to be our number 1 guy. Buckley, also going to be our number 2. Only going to be a sophomore. Only one player graduating, and that's Casey Rogers, who didn't really play much for me. At linebackers, we're going to see a massive shift because we are losing a lot of linebackers. Like over half of them are seniors. Left outside linebacker Luke Reimer, 2-year starter for us, moved to left outside linebacker this year, was okay. He's going to be graduating. Phildarius Payne, who was our coverage linebacker this year, also graduating. So all we have is Jamari Butler, but we do have Joseph Monroe committed, and he's going to be the starter. At middle linebacker, Will Honas, also graduating. He could potentially get drafted. Behind him, we've got Nick Heinrich, who's going to be a senior. He could be the starter, but we also have Matt Lamb coming in, who could still win the job as a true freshman. Then we've got Garrett Snodgrass, who's also going to be a senior. We have Adam Taylor coming in. He's going to be redshirted, and once Snodgrass and Heinrich graduate, he's going to be the number 2 guy. At right outside linebacker, Garrett Nelson, obviously also graduating. He's probably going to get drafted. Behind him, we've got Blaze Gunnerson, who's probably going to be the starter as a junior. Then we've got Kevin Powell, who's a 61 overall walk-on. We have Marvin White coming in. He's probably going to be the backup right outside linebacker. At cornerback, we're also going to be losing a few starters. Quentin Newsom is going to be graduating, as is slot corner Tyreek Johnson. Gary Thompson's obviously going to stay as the number 1. Behind him, it's going to be a little bit of a battle. We've got Marcus Buford, who's going to be a sophomore. He's got good speed, decent coverage ability, decent press, really good awareness at 87. So I think he probably will be the number 2 guy. And then fighting for the slot role is probably going to be either Travis Williams or Malik Williams. Malik with some pretty decent coverage ability, okay awareness, decent press, okay speed. Not exceptional, but good play rec as well. And then there's Travis Williams, who's the best cover guy, 84 man, 81 zone. But 53 awareness is a concern. But he is fast. He's 6'2". We'll see. It's going to be a battle. At free safety, Miles Farmer is going to stay as a starter for his senior season. Polo Gates also going to be a senior. It's going to be his backup. We've got Tim Hawley coming in, who's going to be redshirted in the first year. Could be the starter after they both graduate. We do also have Alex McMahon, who's got 94 speed. He was redshirted this year. He could also battle for that starting job at free safety after our 2 guys there leave. We do have Blake Harper start as strong safety. I thought he was really good this year. And then Isaiah Gifford, who's going to be a junior, is going to be his backup. At kicker, obviously Leon Young is going to stay as the starting kicker. He's only going to be a true sophomore. I think at some point he could be the best kicker in the nation. Then at punter, Pristup is going to be graduating. Obviously, we don't really pay much attention to punters because they're punters. But we're going to have John Robinson come in. It's going to be a true freshman starter for us at punter. That's going to be it for our second season here with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Next episode, we'll go through the full offseason, from offseason recruiting to position changes to schedule to redshirting, all of that. And we're going to be preparing for our third season here with Nebraska. We had a lot of true freshman starters this year, and I still think we had a successful season. As they become true sophomores, are we going to see even more growth? And can we compete for a Big Ten championship? If you made it this far, why don't you like the video, subscribe, and click the bell. The links to all my socials and my Twitch are in the description. I really appreciate all your support. Thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you next time.